Ladies and gentlemen of Algebra 2, welcome to 4-3 factoring. Factoring is sure to cause some panic in some of you, as you might remember it from algebra days and maybe a little bit from geometry days. Factoring does not go away. Factoring is something that you guys need to have at your fingertips at all times, be able to factor, whatever I throw in front of you. So factoring is a big piece because this is going to kind of lead into factoring and solving by factoring. So factoring basically is simple as this. It's basically unfoiling, and it's kind of taking something complicated and breaking it down into two simpler things. So you're taking a quadratic, and most of the time it's a quadratic trinomial, and you're turning that into two binomials. So factoring, first rule of factoring is GCF. The first rule of factoring is we do not talk about factoring. So this is your first rule of factoring. Pull out what's in common, the GCF, greatest common factor. Then look to see if you can do it this way. If there's something in front of x squared, that changes. And then finally grouping and what that looks like. All right, let's kind of look into it here. GCF, first rule, no matter what, anytime somebody says factoring, pull out what's in common. So as I look here, 12 is in common between 12 and 36, and then I write what's left. So I'm going to go x minus 3. Okay, so notice I take like 36 divided by 12. So kind of explaining what I did in a simpler terms for number 2, 8 breaks down into 2 times 4. X squared breaks down into x times x. And then 16 breaks down into 4. Not even 4. Breaks down into, breaks down into 4 times x. So there's a 4 in common and an x in common. So I'll pull that out and then write what's left. So that's going to be 2x plus 4. But then I can do that again. Oh, you know what? I kind of screwed this whole thing up. Let me back up here. Break this down into the simplest things. 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. 16 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. All right, so if I look at what's in common, 3 2's, 1x, 1x. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8x. I'm left with x plus 2. There is my factored answer. All right, so pull out what's in common, write what you have left. So here, I'm pulling out 13x. This becomes 3x plus 1. All right, 39 divided by 13 is 3. X squared, pull it out, x and x, plus 1. For here, let's see, 5, 20, and 40, I'll pull out 5. X to the 7th, x to the 3rd, x squared is the lowest. So I'll be left with x to the 5th minus 4x plus 8. There's my answer. So as we move on, that's what I'm looking at. So now, general trinomials look like this. ax squared plus bx plus c. So here's what I'm looking at. I'm working backwards, and this is kind of what I tell kids a lot of times. You're trying to undo something, you're trying to pull it apart. Most of the time you read math problems left to right like you do, reading like English problems or you're reading it all. Work backwards. And here's what I mean when I say that. I want to know what multiplies to get positive 8 but adds up to a positive 6. All right, so what multiplies to 8 but adds up to 6? So if you're not sure, start listing off factors. So you get like 8 and 1, 2 and 4. Well, 2 and 4 are my factors. So I'm going to go x plus 4, x plus 2. There's my solution. All right, for 6, what multiplies to 12 but adds up to 13? So you got to get a little clever. 12 and 1, 3 and 4, 6 and 2. Those are all my factors. So now 12 and 1 multiply up to 13. So because there's nothing in front of that x squared, it's just going to be x plus 1 and x plus 12. Last one, what multiplies to negative 4 but adds up to 3? Well, I'll start listing off factors of negative 4. So it's negative 4, 1. I've also got 4, negative 1. and 2, negative 2. So 4, negative 1 is going to be my answer. So I'm going to have x plus 4, x minus 1. There's my answer. All right. So now, a difference of two squares. A difference of two squares is looks like this. First thing squared, second thing squared. And if you want to follow it, you can think about it this way. Like I've got x squared minus 4. One way I can think about that is like having x squared plus 0x minus 4. You know, that middle term is, I put that back in there, but I just put a 0 in front of it. Well, what multiplies to negative 4 but adds up to 0? Well, from the previous page, I got negative 4, 1, 4, negative 1, 2, negative 2. So there's my factors right there. X plus 2, x minus 2. But now look, 2 squared is 4, x squared is x squared. So that's what I'm looking at, so that's what I get. And that's kind of what the top of those notes are saying, is that if I recognize it as something squared, it makes it way easier. So this would be like 8 squared. So that'll be x plus 8, x minus 8. Notice it's one of each, one positive, one negative. And 10, x squared minus 25, well, hopefully you recognize that as 5 squared, so that's going to be x plus 5, x minus 5. So now, when I throw an a in front of, when I throw a number in front of that x squared, that kind of changes that. So here's what happens there. I've got to multiply AC, then figure out how to get the middle term from there, then factor by grouping, and then finish it off. So as I look at this and go at my problem here, 2x squared plus 11x plus 5. So that's going to be 10. So what multiplies to 10? That adds up to 11. Well, 10 and 1. You know, you can list 2 and 5, but that doesn't help you. So then I'm going to split the middle term using these factors. So I'm going to write 2x squared plus 10x plus x plus 5. All right, 2x squared plus 10x plus x plus 5. So parenthesis, 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 parenthesis. So if I pull that out, what's in common? Well, that's going to be 2x, x plus 5. Here, nothing in common, so I pull out a 1, x plus 5. Then notice, these two are the same. So that's going to be what my solution is. So I'm going to put together what's on the outside, 2x plus 1, times what's on the inside. There's my final solution. Okay, so multiply out a and c. Oops. Nope, never mind, we can go. Oop. So, same kind of idea here. Split the numbers. 3 times a negative 7 is going to give me negative 21. So what multiplies to negative 21 but adds up to negative 4? So I start listing, so negative 21 and 1, 21 and negative 1, 7 and negative 3, or negative 7, 3, and 7, negative 3. Well, that works my answer right there. So then I'm going to rewrite this middle term, and I'm going to go plus 3x minus 7x minus 7. And I did that order for a reason, because thinking ahead, if I put those in parentheses, those in parentheses, they go together very nicely. So I want to go 3x on this first thing. I'll be left with x plus 1. So for the second thing, I want to pull out a negative 7. A negative 7, the reason I do that is because that's going to pull out and make that an x plus 1. So 3x minus 7, x plus 1. All right, if I don't, okay, pretend I don't pull out a negative 7. So here I pull out a positive 7. So I still have 3x, x plus 1. But if I pull out a positive 7 instead, so I just go like plus 7, I'm left with negative x minus 1. That doesn't match up. That doesn't work. Pull out a negative 7 makes them both x plus 1. That makes my life a lot easier. So taking a look, nothing in front of x squared on this one. So I want to know what multiplies to negative 36, but it'll give me positive 5. So start listing off factors of negative 36, 18 and 2, combination there, 3, 12, 4 and 9. There's my winner, positive 9, negative 4. And kind of the way I used to explain this is, what multiplies here to get this? Well, what multiplies to 36 but subtracts to 5. And then this sign goes with the bigger number. Okay, you're going to have one of each, a positive and a negative. So that's going to be my answer. So I come over here, look. I know it's going to be really easy for a lot of you guys. You're going to want to multiply 2 times 30 and work there. Take a breath, take a minute, look at this. There's something in common with all these. There's something in common. So I want to pull out a 2, and I'll be left with x squared plus 8x plus 15. That's a lot easier to work with. All right, I can work with this thing. All right, so when I'm looking here, I want to just keep that 2 out front, but now I want what multiplies to 15 but adds up to 8. Well, there's only a couple of factors of 15, so that's going to be x plus 5 and x plus 3. Both positive means both positive. So that's kind of what I'm looking at there. So moving ahead, let's take a look here. So for 15, I'm really, really hoping you recognize, you know what, I can pull out a 3 out of there and see what I got left. So that's 4x plus 5. So what multiplies to 4? So what multiplies to 5 but adds up to 4? Well, you got 5 and 1, but that's 5 plus 1. That would give me 6, so that doesn't work. This is as factored as you can make that. All right, you can't split that apart. Nothing there gives you that. If you put x plus 5 and x plus 1, yeah, you'll get that 5, but there's no way you get that middle term of 4. All right, because if I multiply these back, I put those together, I get 6x. That doesn't work. So this would be as factored as I can make that one. Here, x squared, xy, 18y squared. I want to know, here's all I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of bring the y's with me. So in my answer, I'm going to have x, y, and numbers and signs. These are both positive. These are both going to be positive. So that's going to be x and x. And then what multiplies to 18 but adds up to 9? So 18 and 1, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. So that's going to be 3y, 6y. That's going to be my answer. All right. So a rectangle is this big. Find the dimensions. So that's going to be length times width. So 2 things get multiplied to do this. So I want to factor that thing. So let's get after it here. Let's go. That's terrible. You can't even read that. 8x squared plus 10x minus 3. So what multiplies a negative 24 but gives you a positive 10 for an answer? Well, the answer to that is going to be kind of tricky because a lot of kids want to put 6 and 4, and that's not going to work. What it actually is going to be positive 12, negative 2. So I want to rewrite this with positive 12x minus 2x minus 3. Parentheses, 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 parentheses. So here I'll pull out 4x, be left with 2x plus 3. I'll pull out a negative 1 because that'll change that to 2x plus 3. Now I can put this together. There is my answer. All right, that's all I got. Come talk to me with questions. Hopefully this takes off some rust and helps you remember what you're doing.